So the first item on the agenda was the meeting minutes from the previous meeting. So I did get your comments and corrections, Philip. Thanks for those. So if somebody wants to make a motion to approve those.
I move to approve the minutes from the June 2nd meeting.
Anyone want a second?
Second.
Everyone for? Anybody against? Anybody abstain? I'm not even sure, Philip, do you know the advisory committee, are you all sworn in as members, or?
No, we just did get it. We're sworn in as permanent building members and then
Right.
just assigned to working groups. And we don't, so I don't even know if we have to Robert rules these minutes, but it probably
Right.
doesn't hurt just to make sure everyone approves
Okay.
them. But
And so Chief Scory and the police department, are you part of the advisory group, or are you just the user group? Is there a difference?
I believe we are the advisory group. I submitted a letter to the Permanent Building Committee and the Town Council for approval.
Okay, all right. So everybody is on the advisory. Okay. All right. So then, Janice, I think you're up next, or
yep. Can you let me share?
Or Kevin, too.
Yep.
Is it your screen, Janet?
Yeah, I need to show you. As
Real
usual.
quick, Shane, is there any way you can unmute Dave's cell on your end? He's saying he can't unmute himself.
Does that work, Dave?
I think that works. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna, as typical, I'm gonna show you everything in a slideshow so that we can blow things up if we need. Hopefully this will go fairly quickly for you. There'll be some civil questions or comments because of the challenges of the rear area where the Sally Port's going, and then the rest of the meeting really will be, I would assume, phasing and everything. So we're going to talk a little bit about the exterior, a little bit about the civil, a little bit about landscape, mostly the landscape. I'm going to say we're not doing anything on landscape in this phase because we don't even have everything resolved yet. So we'll talk about this. I have the plans in here as typical, just in case anybody wants to go back and forth. If you were at the meeting last Thursday night, you saw the same plans. So this is the area of construction. These are the second floor and the top floor, the third floor. So nothing has changed from that. This is the roof. We're going to own obviously new roofs at the additions, and then we're going to own a new roof right now, we think, underneath this area where the RT unit is going to be replaced. If this is the time to replace it, if this one of the units is not going to be replaced, it's a bit of a challenge, but we'll figure that out. We'll talk to Bond and Jane about how to do that, but that's the plan right now. So just going back, these are sections through the building. Here's a 3-story addition over here, flat roof, and this is the new entry area where we're filling in where the records room is going to be. Nothing really to see. I mean, they're helpful to see what we're doing, but that's the axon in the current status of the building with the 3-story addition here. Let me get a pointer. Hold on for a second. 3-story addition, the new entry, the Sally Port areas. These are the current status of the elevations. This is the 3-story elevation as you've been looking at it for a while now. That's the new entry portion. That's the infill on that elevation. You can see it also on this side, but this is the main elevation. These were what the full committee saw last week, and you sort of gave us a go ahead to proceed on this pathway. Just to remind everyone that we were going to bring this curve all the way down to the ground. There's a grade beam running underneath that. complicated how we would do that. So we looked at the plans, and then we were out on site with in records rooms and talking with the PD, and we looked at the space and straightening it out. Works fine in plan, and it'll certainly be less structural, a little bit less structural input. And I think it actually strengthens the new entrance without that curve coming down. And it leads you right to the front door. If you're headed in that way, you turn to the right, and there's the door. So if anybody has any questions about it, I think the committee pretty much passed on, approved that last week. But again, and I'm also going to note, here's the new addition with brickwork and the masonry below. And we'll talk a little bit about that. That's a view from Princess Street. So same things. From the wall section point of view, the two on the left are where we're infilling. This is the overhang right now, right here. So, what's left of that is in a curving shape. So we're going to take that out, and we're going to run the new masonry up and windows, whatever it is, to match. So we're going to pull that little piece of that curve out. We tried to not pull it out, but in the end, they're going to destroy it. I'm sure during construction, this will be easier to build. And then, of course, with anything we build, we have to meet the energy code for continuous insulation and air barriers and all that stuff. So we'll be detailing that. This is the entry section. And again, this glass is essentially a glass box, but it will be sitting on a little masonry edge, because you don't want to bring that glass down to the ground. So it'll have a little masonry edge to match everything. Recessed walk-off mats, whatever. There'll be a ceiling, there'll be a drain, a little overhang. And this just begins to show the level of details that we're showing. We still have to work out this detail right here, which is where the new and the old buildings come together. So still trying to figure out what that piece is, because we're taking a wall out. So there's a masonry wall here. We're taking that out, putting the new entry. We have to deal with that thing here. These wall sections are the existing 3-story police department, the shaded gray, and this is the new elevation section through the new wall. You can see that beam was, when we originally showed the section there, the beam was as tall as the floor, but it doesn't need to be nor want to be with the mini piles and everything. So we looked at that whole thing. And so it's going to be a much shorter and thick, dense beam right there. And so there's the slab and there's the beam, and then we'll be building up a very traditional masonry wall with, I'll try to blow this up a little bit so you can see it. Traditional wall with, insulation, air vapor barriers, flashings, all those things. And so instead of having the concrete come up, we're going to use the same masonry we use in the rest of the building. I think it's a much better wall now. Well, better in that it actually meets the energy code. It's probably going to be easier to construct that way, and has all the bells and whistles that you need for a modern wall construction right now. These are the windows. We're going to be repeating the window details that you have now with the soldier coursing at the tops and the projections as it is now. It has a sill pan from the window out here, so we'll be repeating to match. So that's the wall sections. This is the Sallyport elevation. This is a challenge to build. This is the current wall section. Let me blow that one up for you. Challenges of it include the fact that right now the wall comes down, and this is masonry right here and a steel frame and everything. There's not a whole lot of room to get that overhead door in. So we're going to take out that little bit of masonry that just headed it there. We can get a low rising overhead door in there. And right now we're showing a drain. The challenge will be to make sure how we can get that drain to come in and get underneath there. The other option is to sort of just pitch this whole thing out to the front and use a gutter, much like they have now. We're looking at the two of them. We much prefer this one without the gutters and the downspouts there, but we're still working to make sure we can get the drain to work there. But that's the overhead door in, the framing structure for that.
Janet,
yeah.
do you need a door? You just can't use like a roll-up Rytec here, like a high speed, which you not need that ceiling space?
Yeah, the roll-up doors are quite big too. By the time you insulate them and you roll them, they get pretty hefty themselves. And we've got some structure here. You can see these are tube steel here.
Yeah.
So we got that. This is still a work in progress. We're in design development, and we, first of all, we didn't think we could get the overhead door in at all, and we were
Right.
definitely going to redo it. But then we talked to overhead door companies and found out, yes, indeed, there is a door that'll fit under here and work. And the roll up, if you start the roll up, you're rolling like up here.
Right.
So it runs into the structure. So, there's neither one of them is great, honestly.
And
we
you're
looked at
one door, right?
two. There are two doors
Right.
because it's subdivided with a
Right.
separation. We looked at one door. We thought, oh, we'll do one door. Is that going to be any easier? But the reality is not necessarily. The other challenge is the drainage off the roof. So we're trying to get the insulation. And Amy and I and Scott have been working on this one. We talked about like just taking it and pitching it forward and sloping the steel or something like that. So we're still looking at that as an option too. We don't like that as much, so we're continuing to look at that. But it's a challenging opening. It's pretty small, because we can't put any load against existing. We have to figure it out a different way. But we're making progress, so to speak, on this one. These are just details along the way and what we're doing with that. We're, treating the Sally port as an alternate. So everything is going to be on the one sheet. This is just part of the sheet that I blew up for you. These are other details that are of concern or we're working on. This one in particular is where the existing entry is. So that's the existing entry that you walk under. And so we're putting a new building against that, and it's at a different plane. There's different heights. Of course, this is half a level lower. So this is complicated detail. We're working on that one, trying to make sure we get the appropriate, barriers and flashings and everything, whether this block has to turn in, whether it's a better way of doing it. We've got steel, we've got a lot of things going on there. So it's an issue of concern of us, as all details are. And it's a very complicated wall, how they built it to begin with. I mean, remember the study, we couldn't quite figure out how it all came together exactly. So, it hasn't gotten clearer, but, we're working through. So this room over here will be the records room. And then the half a lower down is at one of the evidence rooms. So anyhow, so that's that. You can stop me anytime with questions. That's it for the architecture and the exterior of the building. Do you guys have questions where we are right now, why we're doing anything? Concerns about materials, insulation, anything?
So Shane here, Janet, just, I think a couple of the crucial details are going to be where you tie in the third story into that pitched roof.
Shane, could you start that over again? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
So I think a couple of the critical details are where you tie the third story addition into the existing pitched roof in the front.
Yeah.
And also at the Sally port there. So
yeah, like here.
Yeah, exactly. That detail right there, that's going to be a weak point. And I think it's the same one at the back of the Sally port.
Yeah, see, that's going to have an expansion joint here. We're obviously looking at that right now. This is the other edge of it, doing the same at the Sally port. So, and it's even more complicated because as you turn the corner, the planes are not the same. There's, the brick plane, there's the stone plane, there's the concrete plane. So there's multiple planes. You have the same problem when you did the addition before. It looked like somebody just poured concrete over the shapes. It's like really messy. We're going to try to do a much better job at that. There's another thing we might want to talk to Bond about, what's their experience doing these. But, we own, we have to provide fire stopping, the plates, the overhangs, and all of these details. You can see them all here. They're all up and down the building. We only pierce the building on the lowest level at one spot, and I think 2 spots on the other levels where we're coming through windows and openings. I can go back to the plan and point those out, but agreed, Shane, that they are, critical points that we're looking at. So on the first floor, we come through once, and then here we come through twice. 3 times because we created an opening to detective sergeants, and then on this one we come through 3 times here. So, and once over here. So we come through the windows, and so this is where we're going to have to deal with the joints as they pass from building to building. So the rest of it will be sort of covered up with walls.
How are you tying? Yeah, this is a freestanding addition, right?
Yes.
You're not tying this in any level.
No.
So it's just basically standing. Is there any consideration? It's just butting up exactly against the brick. So brick against CMU, or what's the new addition interior wall made of? That's going to be abutting the existing
so we're
brick?
going to put drywall, on the face that's in the detective. So there will be drywall here. Well, we have to make up that difference depending on where you are. You've got brick extending a little bit out. You can see it right here. So we've got to deal with that, because the plane of the brick and the plane of the block, down here are not the same. As you can see, it's going up here, so you can see there's a gap. So we have to build those walls up to get that finish. It's a very uneven exterior wall finish. Let's put it that way. It's not smooth.
No,
Yeah.
it's not smooth and
No.
thermal. I don't know what the thermal capacity is of that brick wall now, and now it's an interior space. If that messes up in some way, probably not, but just
I don't think so. I'll talk to Bob about that again. I don't think so. It just becomes an interior wall at that point. The spaces are tempered the same on either side. If one was tempered differently, I'd be worried about it. If one didn't have air conditioning, for instance, only heat, then I'd be worried. I'm less worried about that. And air can flow between the 2 of them. There's no problem with that.
Right.
It's only at the edges are where we'd be concerned about that. So, those are details that have to be worked out. We were focused, this part of design and get the structure right, get the building in the right location. The only thing I can say in plan wise that there's going to be, I'm going to back up in the plan again to show you. There are columns. You can see it one here and there, and you can see it on the floor below there. These columns are still the exact final locations that are still being worked on, because we're trying to maintain accessibility and use and get the largest evidence area. You can see that the challenges in the detective area where you've got a door and then you got a column right there, and this column over here is buried a bit. But, these got these freestanding columns, and, there's nothing we can do about them because they can't be up against the building, Phil. For those same issues, they have to be pulled out. But this is a freestanding structure, no weight loading against the existing building. So, thanks for, all the things that we're dealing with and working with in this phase. You can see the columns in this one are, again, they do. There's one buried right there, and there's another one over here. So there's just 2 of them, that thank God. But they are, in awkward, semi-awkward locations. So we're working to finalize them. And a lot of it has been placement about what happens above the location. So we can't, we wouldn't want this column to be right smack and dab in the middle of Lieutenant Rubelet's office, that's for sure. So we're trying to get them in the walls or in the wall somewhere. So what else? Anything else?
So the windows, Janet, they're to match.
The windows. Yeah, I did have I did have some window details somewhere. These are all the window details. Let me
Right.
blow that up a little bit for you.
Do we know what the existing are and the ones that are going to remain in the fire department?
Well, they were replaced in the, I think, in the design, in the, last phase. So we're going to try to match them about at least how they sit in the wall,
Right.
and how that, we're trying to match that with the, it's really hard to see. And I don't know why the Revit model, it's a Revit model. When you print them out from a Revit model, they're not as clear, but there's actually sills and everything in there. So we're trying to match the window shape, sizes, dimensions as before. The addition of B, of course, is that we're now insulating the building completely differently than they did 21 years ago. We don't insulate like that anymore. So, that's an old, that's the old way of insulating buildings, and you don't do it that anymore. Air barriers are out on this plane. All the insulation is outboard of the interior wall, and therefore there's the difference between the outside face of the brick and the sheathing is a very different location than it was 20 years ago.
So
in
these
fact,
are all operable, right?
pardon me?
They're all operable?
Yeah, whatever the window, whatever the window is, I don't have the window schedule on here. I can't tell you, but Scott replicated what's doing now, what they have now. So if they're operable, they're operable. If they're not operable, they're not operable. If we want to make them operable and they're not, we should talk about that. So I will go through that. So check.
Well, so I assume, Chief Scory, your existing windows are operable, right? You can open and close them.
Is he there?
I had to unmute myself. We can. When
Right.
the building was originally finished, we could not, but we can open the windows now.
Okay.
Right. So you want openable windows, right? And then do we have screens on those?
There are screens on them.
Yeah. Okay.
So if we want to change that pattern, we certainly can, but we were just trying to match.
Yep.
So
we should try and see if we can find out what the existing manufacturers. I don't know, maybe they're around, maybe they're not. Just figure out what the basis of design is going to be.
Was there a question in there, Shane?
Yeah, no, we should try and figure out what the existing windows are. If they're still made, use that as the basis of design.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. Can't tell. These elevations are rather small, but let me see if I can tell if on the elevation, if, there's some indicators. No, I can't tell from this. I'd have to go back to the detail sheet, but wherever there were operators before, we'll replace them. I don't think there are operators in the, I don't think we'll put operators necessarily in the records room. We could, but I don't know if you want to, is the question. So
probably not, but Chief Scory, again, we're going to defer to you on that. Should those windows at the ground level there be operable? Because people will be able to walk right up to that. The sidewalk will be right up to the edge of the building there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think those, we're talking about the windows and records. I'm having a hard time hearing you, Shane.
Yeah, me too. He's talking about these windows here. These windows here.
My personal opinion is we keep those that they'd not be able to open, but
okay.
So
they're called fixed.
I'll roll with whatever. If anybody else in the PD wants to chime in, I'm open to anybody's opinion here.
Deputy Chief?
I would agree with non-operable.
Non-operable. Okay. Okay. I think that's what I have. More questions? Windows, operations, details.
Well, we have Chris there. So is it a rubber roof you're putting on the additions?
Is there another roof?
No, a rubber. What's the
rubber
roof?
roof. Rubber
I can't read that.
I don't know. Let me see what it is. I know I should know this one. I think it's a PVC roof.
PVC. Okay. So Chris
right now.
Pierce, yeah, Chris Pierce. Do you guys have a preference of what the flat roofs are?
No.
PVC is okay.
Yeah, PVC is fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's going to be a filed sub-bid. I think it's well over 20 grand, 25 grand or whatever, but Anything else? Okay. So the next thing is the Sally Point dumpster, and Jim Jackson and Matt Alford for PAR. If you guys want to unmute yourselves and show yourselves even potentially. I put in what I thought were the latest drawings. I'm going to do a little introduction to them and you guys can take it from here. So I want to point out that this area back here is a bit of a mess. You know it now with everything you have to fit in there. You've got a change in grade right here right on the corner. You've got the retaining the wall that surrounds the dumpster, and then you also, I have in some pictures, you park here. You've got a juice box for an electric vehicle. You've got the transformer. Got a parking space. I mean, it's chock-a-block full with things. And now we're adding to that by adding this this addition here. So what we've been trying to do is figure out how to accommodate everything you've got or not. And I'm headed into the or not category to fit it all in. So Matt and Jim have looked at, I've got 3 options and I've commented on them. I want to show you them all. I mentioned this to Shane last week, and this is a good place for the committee to comment. And then if you guys have anything else you want to add about any other utility stuff, certainly, but this is like a focus of the committee today. Matt, is that good enough of an introduction for you?
That is, yep.
Yeah, and I'll blow this little corner up so you can talk away here.
That would be great. So, and we tried pretty hard to keep the same number of parking spaces that you have right now, which I was assuming is the 2 parking spaces kind of in front of the dumpster, and then you have the 2 parking spaces that are almost like a pull through, one on the police side and one on the fire department side. Unfortunately, it's the amount of space that the Sally Port takes up really restricts you from accommodating all 4 of those parking spaces. So all these options show 3 parking spaces back there. And we'll just run through some of these options and we'll see which one is preferred and how to move forward. This is the option A here. It's similar to what you've seen on the plans, with the curb line just shifting over a little bit more to provide. We maintain that 35 feet driveway, and it's shifting over to provide a better access to the dumpster and a full parking space right in front there that would have easy access to the charger, the car charger. We're also providing, at least 4 feet between the parking space and the building so people can walk through and use this door. We want to keep this door accessible at all times. You also notice in this option that the dumpster pad has been reduced a little bit, try to be a little bit more efficient. It looks like there's only 1 dumpster back there currently. And we should be able to reduce the size of that pad and enclosure, unless you guys have anything else that you put in there. If you have bins that go back there as well, or if it's just the 1 dumpster. So I'm looking for your input there.
Do you want me to go then? Do you want to show all 3 of them in a row and then come back with questions, or do you want to comment each time? What do you want to do as a group here?
We could run
all 3 and jump back.
Okay. I'm gonna see if I can get a pointer and a blow up here. Hold on. Okay, this is B.
Yep. So option B, we wanted to provide a separate access for the dumpster, and then a parking spot as well, and then also maintaining a clear path to that entryway. This is a little difficult because we're providing this new entryway is a new curb cut, which per the zoning code, you're not allowed to have curb cuts as close as they are. And if we were just to extend it to make it more than 35 feet, that would also exceed the zoning code there. So, if you're trying to accommodate the code that the town's put together, and you want to be a maximum 35-foot driveway, and I think it's 100 feet between the driveways. So that's the issue with this one, is the fact that you just aren't really meeting the code, and when the dump truck comes in to pick up the dumpster, you're going to be in the middle of the intersection. You could be blocking some traffic, pulling it out. It's not an ideal situation there.
Okay. And
so this is the third option here, which would be relocating the dumpster over towards near the transformer. We reduce the size to about an 8x8, so that we're not interfering with the clear zones of the transformer, which is about 15 feet or more. They need to have from the front face of it to the, for the guy to come in, open up the door, and if there's any issues, he needs to have space behind him to back up. So, any explosions or anything like that, he's not trapped in there. So we reduced it, but we provided screening on two sides.
Which are the pink lines here?
Yep, the thick pink lines there. So there wouldn't be any gate here. We couldn't slide it any closer to the building because of there's a drain manhole just below it. So we had to stay out of the way of that. And then that would allow you to have two parking spaces from where you had them previously in front of the dumpster. One would be a compact car, which would be good for the electric vehicles. And then I think if you had two electric vehicles, you could charge both of them there if you had the right connections. And then there's also
oops, sorry.
That's all right.
I'll get it bigger. Hold on. Back. Yep.
I think both with option A and option C here, we have there's an existing curb ramp that I'm not sure is being used. If there's it doesn't look like there's a crosswalk going to it. The crosswalk kind of goes more.
It's right here. Is that right? Right there?
Right. Yep. There's a curb ramp there, and there's also one just to the left of that. So there's two.
Oh,
so
okay.
We'd be looking at eliminating the one curb ramp to provide a better, not as much like grade change in the sidewalk. So you can provide that push over the curb opening. But those are smaller details we can work out through design.
So obviously none of them are great, but they are what we have to work with what's left here. To make, losing a parking space, got to protect it. We got to get access to the transformer, juice box, entry point, roadways, curb cuts, all of those. So what's your thoughts? What are you thinking here? Anybody want to jump in?
What's the current dumpster pad size and the current dumpster being used, and how often does it get picked up? What's the current arrangement with the trash?
I don't know what size the dumpster is. I know it gets emptied twice a week.
Twice a week.
Is that used by both the fire department and the police department, or just the fire department? I mean, just the police department?
It's used by both.
Okay. Okay.
It's something to consider in regards to volume of trash. I believe, is it private pickup or does Wakefield pick it up, Chief? Do you know?
It's go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, no, it's the regular pickup that the town does.
Town
doesn't do it.
Town hauler, right? Whoever it is. Right. I just they should be brought into this, because my understanding with dumpster enclosures is you need enough clearance on either side, especially if it's a lift. It's not an exact science. Even in a 7x7 pad, most dumpsters I know are at least 6 feet, square. I don't know if you have enough room. And then that's just a huge consideration in any of these options. Are any of these options viable for the truck that's going to be used and for the pad? Has that been checked with a hauler?
Sure. So when I was saying 7 by 7, that's really like where the space that the dumpster would sit, but the actual enclosure would be at least a foot or two off of that. So you'd be looking at like a 9 to 10 foot wide opening for that truck to get in there.
Yeah, I would just advise that someone check with the actual hauler what their needs are going to be and whether or not we have to move maybe to roll away. Maybe we don't get a truck pickup. Maybe if we had 2-yard rollaways picked up 3 times a week, it's the same volume and maybe would help us out a lot in terms of the amount of space we need for the truck turnaround and back up. Those trucks need a pretty good radius, and that street's pretty tight on that corner with the hill. Like you said, we got it all. We just need like a carnival and a hot dog stand somewhere, and we could probably make it a little easier. But asking, is there an option to change the type of dumpster and frequency to make this work for us might be a worthwhile question.
Okay, so who do we speak to about that?
Joe Conway, DPW
Joe
would be
Conway?
the place to
Okay.
start. They would connect you to whoever they deal with, I would guess.
Right, we deal with JRM. So I
Okay.
mean, we
Yeah.
could probably do that, but I'll tell you this right now, it's tough getting in and out to get that dumpster because the guy smashes that enclosure all the time. It's
Yeah,
really tight now. But and then you put snow on top of that in the winter, and it's near impossible to get the guy in there.
This site is so tight. There's just no space to put things like that. Can I ask a quick question though? Right now, if we would pick, just say we would pick one of the ones that put it in the, oops, sorry. That got smaller and somehow I'm, hold on, I gotta go from this. Okay, so if we would use this one and we would put a curb cut going straight out here, say we would pick one of these two, or this location or that location, and we went straight out, so we weren't kind of in the middle of this thing, is that just as big of a problem because Crescent would have to be blocked at some point? I mean,
Yes,
so
absolutely.
they don't have any, there's no advantage to any of the locations.
I don't think the truck could make the swing into that straight on.
Yeah.
Dumpster.
Correct.
The best opportunity would be for them to come on the apron, which we don't want them to come on either, because if the truck has to leave, they're in their way, and if they approached it from the front, which may happen that you when this has to be picked up, they come in and they swing in this way and the truck takes that spot and picks it up from that side. I don't know,
We use rollaway in all our urban properties that have private haulers that we need, and there's no swing. Again, if you have a 6-yard dumpster twice a week, 12 yards, you just do two 2-yard rollaways 3 times a week. It's still 12 yards of trash being hauled away in a week.
Yeah,
I think I think rollaways might be the best option here.
We just have to check with the hauler to make sure that he'll come 3 times.
Yeah. They most will, but I understand that. And then the snow operations with rollaways is a lot different. And to Chris's point about getting in there and rolling the thing, they don't go out and shovel your dumpsters for you. They just keep on driving. So there's pros and cons. It's worth exploring, I think, at least.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea.
I definitely agree with you. We need to have one of the guys from JRM come out and definitely look at it.
Can we get rid of the car charging station at the back, put that at the front? Would that make a difference? Does that make more space? Is that an option to look at?
The reason we have it at the back of the building is because it's for our parking enforcement vehicle.
Right.
And if we put it in the front of the building, somebody not working here will be charging their car out there every day.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and honestly, those charging stations can be mounted on the wall or on a post or on anything.
Can we hop the charging station over to the other side where you're showing the dumpster right now? That drive through
Over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can put it anywhere. So the dumpster is.
I mean, you go to two spaces rather than 3 back there. But it gives you a lot more space on the left-hand side there for the dumpster and the dumpster pad if we don't have to have a car there.
Yeah. So right now, Shane, though, there are 3 spaces. There are 4 total, as Matt said, right, Matt? 4 spaces.
Yeah, that would be including the fire department space there.
Yeah, including, you know, like
Right.
assuming this is a fire and these 3 are police,
Yeah.
you're going to lose parking one way or the other. The question is, where do you lose it? So.
Is the right-hand side, is that 2 spaces? Do cars park
Yep.
back to back there? Right?
There and there.
Yeah.
Is that the case?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's 2 parking spaces. There's a line there, and
Right.
usually there's sometimes parked on either side, or not always, but I've been there when it's that thing. So, something's got to give. So. Okay, so I think what we need to do is talk to Chris and Joe and see what we have for rollways or other opportunities here, and then look at it again, because clearly, and then in the end,
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
So when I look at this diagram, it would seem to make more sense to me to take away the fire department parking space, put the dumpster there. So that wouldn't it be easier for the trash truck to pull in the fire apron than to try and manipulate around all the things going on behind the east side of the building?
Yes, I mentioned that. I thought that would be the better way, but
maybe I missed that. I was too busy staring at the diagram.
Yeah. So moving something there. They're all,
there's if the dumpster truck is blocking the apron when the fire trucks need to get out in an emergency.
Yeah, that's my concern. I was just going to pipe in on that. Again, only going visually what I can see. If you're going to put this structure that's existing, and I've got a 40-ton ladder truck that's got to swing that corner as it is. There's usually 2 cars parked in those spaces, and usually there's a van or a car parked in the street there. I mean, I've seen this dumpster emptied hundreds of times when I've been on duty. We also have our own trash that we put right out front every Tuesday. So we're well aware of all the stop and go. We know these drivers personally, half of them, but I can't have, one of these trucks blocking my apparatus and saying go right instead of left when we're coming out. And I can't have visibility obstructed either. So we'll work and do whatever you guys want, but that's something to put in the back of your mind. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm not so worried about the parking. Chief will make anything work for you guys, but the dumpster being placed right there, I'm already concerned with bumping out the Sally Port or the visibility of that 40-ton ladder truck swinging the corner. But that's my 2 cents there. I know there's nowhere to go with it, but visibility is a big issue for us.
Unless we just reduce the parking spaces, we just land with 2 parking spaces on the right-hand side, and one of those is for the electric vehicle.
I'm not taking anyone's parking, but
Yeah.
that's my position.
Yeah.
But we have to, what I guess to me, always these kind of questions roll back into, from an operations point of and a need point of view, what is absolutely the basic things that are needed, and then what are pluses. So, we need the Sally Port addition, we need the transformer, we need a dumpster or rollaways, and we need to create as many parking spaces, at least one of them electrical, as possible. So is that define it for everyone pretty well? And let's see what we can do with that as a concept. Because obviously we tried the other approach, doing it all, and clearly it doesn't work. So Matt spent some time, and then I edited, comment, and then he redid them, and they got maybe marginally better, but again, it's tough. It's a tough fit. So, okay.
So how are we going to make that decision then? Do we want, Chief Scory, do you want to think about it and we'll revisit at the next meeting, or do we want to keep it out there and keep kicking it around today?
Hopefully I just heard everything you said. I think we need to consult with JRM, get their opinion.
Yep.
Let's kick this around a little bit and come back to it again.
Yeah, I think it's wise to talk to the DPW about, the pickup and how that process works, and can we move to something other than the dumpster, and if we can, what does that mean to the plan? None of these affect the civil engineering of the underground utilities, except maybe where there's manholes or things like that. It's just surface stuff, and obviously on the corner here there's grade change, so there's no opportunities to go out that street. So anything we do, we have to come out. Does anybody have any comment about the angled parking? Just curious. Yes, no, it looks okay as long as we get parking in there. You're okay with that? I think they all.
Well, it makes getting to that door pretty tight too. If
Oh yeah,
with a 9 foot wide car there, you got a real pinch point.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's a pinch point. I mean, it's not a prime location for the public or anybody. This is purely,
Right. Yeah.
but Matt was charged with making sure that, and you can see these are not big parking spaces. One of them is that little vehicle that they use. It's pretty narrow, and one is pushed back as far as possible. Indeed, it might, be a bigger vehicle than we're showing there, but it's only 16 feet in there to work with. Those are pretty.
That's an egress door too,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yep. It is. It is.
So if people are piling out in an emergency.
Yeah. Which is why we have to control that pathway. Curb it, something to so that it's clear they don't park, and they're not going to be able to get in there because they got a building they have to get around. So it'd be better with just one space there, honestly. But again, I think option 1 had one space. Yeah, just one there. But we also are trying to jam the dumpster into it, much like it is now. But that's better. It's better coming to the door. So. Okay, we'll talk to the DPW. We'll talk about the ruleways, and we'll go at this again, trying to. And as long as you understand that, we can't have the four parking spaces that we have now. We may be as few as 2. We'll try to minimal 2. I think we can get 2 in somehow, and maybe 3. So okay. All right. And then my last, guys, Civil, do you have anything civil that you want to say besides this? That, Jim, anything else from a civil point of view?
I think the only thing that's different that we've talked about is shifting that center island down at the bottom over to be center on the entrance.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So we've been, the final location of this is what he's talking about, or this is what he's talking about, to get it to be aligned with whatever this ends up to be. So.
Yeah, and then another item I had was we're calling it alternative 3 on the apparatus bay paving.
Yep.
I know there's some rutting right there coming right out of the entryway. So there's a couple solutions for that. I think the best solution is probably the most expensive too, which is doing a 10-foot concrete apron.
Like right around there.
Yep, right around there. So that really hardens up that surface for those trucks hitting that same spot over and over again. And then we can mill and overlay the rest of the parking lot in that area. It looks like they had a pretty heavy duty pavement proposed on the previous plan. So it should be sufficient to mill and overlay it elsewhere, outside of that 10-foot zone. But it is something we may want to confirm either during construction, just to make sure it was built according to plans. Do you guys, is there any damage to that area besides right within the building? Do you find it rutting and cracking and everything in there?
Talking about the fire department apron here?
Yep.
Yeah,
Is there-
there's nothing within the building. It's all the apron itself. It's in awful shape. It definitely was not done to the original specs. You know, the bituminous wasn't even the proper type for the traffic. So, you know, you may have to look deeper into that, but it's definitely well past its expectancy at this point, and the apparatus is starting to suffer a little bit. So,
Yeah, and that's even outside of 10 feet within the building. So I'm talking like, as you get towards Crescent Street, it's still in I don't know if they've done any.
Different areas. It's sagging in different spots. I mean, it's
Yeah.
yeah. You can take a closer look at it for sure. Anything will help at this point.
Right.
Is
So,
it, can I ask a question, Matt? Would, I don't know, would you core something? Is there a way of testing to see what the layers are? Or, I don't know.
it would be good to do some pavement cores to find out what the depth is of that. So, there is the mill overlay option that will make it look really nice in the beginning, but if the underlying substrate isn't deep enough, or if the base course of the pavement wasn't a sufficient depth, then you're going to run into the same issues further down the line. So in order to remediate that, you would have to actually excavate all of the pavement and provide a thicker section. Maybe we go from maybe 3 inches out there, and that's really not sufficient. We should be looking at a 4 to 5 inch thick layer of pavement.
Okay. Something to Shane to think about, whether we can do that and find out, or could it, I hate to keep throwing bad stories here, but could it be the compaction underneath that as well that has caused some sagging? Maybe the paving itself is fine, but how they compacted that soil in preparation was poor?
It could be. And we could actually, we could go out there and evaluate from the surface. Usually the type of cracking will identify that. We can identify that pretty quickly on what the problem is. So we haven't specifically looked at that yet, but we could look at that.
Okay.
So can you give us a price to get your drillers back out there and just do some cores? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, you wouldn't necessarily need a drilling contractor, but you could get a testing agency to go out and just take some small cores.
Okay, so while you're talking about going down, what, 18 to 24 inches?
Yeah.
All right, so kind of a Briggs or a UTS type?
Yeah, exactly. They would be able to do that.
Okay. All right, good. Matt, do you have anything else on your tick list here?
I think that's all I have.
Okay. And then I do have this is the old landscape, and obviously when we decide all this stuff, they'll come back and do something. As I continue to say, they have, some seeded lawn and some shrubbery to put it in the end, depending on where things end up, whether we move the signage and becomes a bench or something, I will bring that up to them as an opportunity, or whether it's going to hang on the building, I don't know. Okay, that's it for me. Shane, this is your world now of phasing. Do you want to plan up at all, or do you have anything?
No, so I think Dave or Dario, we're going to present.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Okay.
Yep. Maybe Dario, if you can share the written narrative, and I'll just speak to it.
Yep, that works for me. 1 second.
So, Dario, maybe there you go.
Yeah. One sec. How do I share on here, Shane?
I can just start talking, Dario, as you're pulling it up. It's more probably verbal.
I got it.
All right. So we've been working diligently on verifying the sequencing and phasing of all the renovation components and the overall schedule and logistics, taking into account the original schedule that was sort of contemplated before we got on board as a placeholder. And we've verified the sequences and the phasing and, you know, the temporary space to house a swing space all works. And one of the things that's become apparent that we need to figure out a way to resolve, and I think in the end we have a suggested solution that'll be a win-win, but there's a sort of a fatal flaw in the initial phase with respect to the lobby renovation, which needs to come first to minimize the impact of not having a front entry for a while. So the lobby being the first sequence wants to start immediately. And if you look at the durations from when the 100% CD set gets completed, there's just specific time sequences that can't be really adjusted, and that's the time it takes to get the bid documents out to the bidders, and then the time it takes for them to actually produce a bid, and then the time it takes to get them under contract, and then the time it takes to get submittals from them for materials and more specifically equipment, and then the time it takes to get those approved and back, which is all sort of standard procedure. And then the big issue then becomes the material product lead times. And at the best case scenario, if there's like a VAV box or something mechanically that's needed in the lobby area, we couldn't expect to see that until early March with the current date for construction documents. So that tells us that it's not realistic to start any renovation, which in the timetable that was initially contemplated in December. We just won't have the material, and especially where there's so many little pieces of phasing that need to be completed, none of the durations of the individual renovation phases are long enough to accommodate not having the material on hand as you start. So in looking at all that, for the renovation area specifically, we can't start that until March, and that's at best case lead times. And I don't know if anybody else has done any projects recently, but one resulting problem from the return of the pandemic is lead times have gone out of control. And there's materials you just can't even get right now. We found out over the last couple of weeks, for instance, that if you want a steel bar joist right now, you might as well forget it. There's just so many things out there. We can't get mineral wool, lots of things. So at best case scenario, at 8 weeks for equipment, that puts us early March. And if it's a 12-week lead time, which sometimes mechanical equipment like a VAV could take, that puts us at the end of March. Excuse me. So we're strongly suggesting that renovation doesn't start until early March to start selective demo, maybe mid-March at best. And that way we have a fighting chance of getting there. And in looking at that, if we do that, because of all the sequences and durations needed to do all the renovation, that will actually extend the project out. We can't compress it from the 12 months that was originally contemplated. And therefore, we're looking at it from, does it make any sense now to start the addition in the fall, knowing that it's going to require winter conditions that cost money, you know, and it requires the design team to put out an early package. Essentially, the early package, I think we were suggesting, needed to happen in early August or sometime. I think that's the proposed alternate, Dari. Can you pull up the other one? There you go. So just to meet the early start, we were going to look for a design early package for a site, steel and concrete at the end of August to start the addition in the fall. And what we're suggesting is, if we know we can't start the renovations and we need 12 months for all the renovations, it probably makes more sense to put the addition off till the spring as well. And that benefits of that are the design team isn't going to be forced into an early package that, you know, always has the inevitable holds and contingencies and all the things that, you know, we want to make sure, because it's an early package, it's not going to be complete. We've got to cover ourselves with contingency. And also, we won't need to do winter conditions for building the addition if it starts in the spring. So there will be 2 months of escalation, but we think that the savings between the holds required for the early package and the escalation will certainly make that a cost neutral change to postpone till the spring. And we think it's really the only way to go now, unless we just, for whatever reason, wanted to start and then had to extend the job, which is going to cost more money. So I'm happy to take questions on that, but I think I'm trying to get sort of the high level. It's really comes down to, there's no way to get material fast enough for the renovation area unless there was a way to accelerate the design, and we're not suggesting in any way that we do that. So we were going to look for approval to change the schedule that was originally contemplated. That's in the best interest of the project, both financially and from a more likely ease of coordination and less pain for everybody at the end of the day.
Dave?
Yep.
Yeah, Joe Bertrand here. So essentially your delay, the renovations would be delayed 4 months?
Well, no, we're gonna, phase 2A is the lobby. We look to start that in mid-March with, selective demolition in mid-March, and we'll have the equipment just in time towards the end of March for that renovation. So that's the earliest we can start the lobby renovation. We just don't think it makes any sense to start the addition earlier than that, because they're all gonna need, both the addition and the renovation, all of the sequences are gonna need the 12 months. So it just makes sense to do them at the same time.
So in other words, you were going to start in December, and now you would start in March. Is that basically the bottom line?
It is, yes.
Okay. All right. I think that's a decision you have to give to the whole committee.
Right.
So we're going to meet next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. And we'll send you the required stuff. It makes sense to me, but I obviously only have one vote.
In terms of presentation, Joe, did I do a good enough job explaining it, or do you think, okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Because it does get a little complex with understanding, all the time people think, oh, you just put a set of documents out and 2 days later you're on site putting the work in place. Which if you have a job that has a 2-year duration and you've got some early site work, we can certainly ramp up. But when you're talking about these little pieces of renovation that have to happen super quick, you need to have material in your hands, or there's no chance that you're going to turn them over that fast. And that's really the driver.
Yeah, I wouldn't want you to start it and you then can't get the goods to do it.
That's in the best case scenario. Without these sort of extenuating circumstances that we're living with today, it always takes 8 weeks to get a VAV box, and I can't, we can't even do an early package for that because it's filed sub. So there's really no option. The only option really was, you still start the addition early, and we can't. It's going to just that would require the job overall to extend, and that's going to cost you money. So it's really a no-brainer. You just have to start in March. There's just no way around it.
Well, it also might make sense as well, because when talking with the town administrator, we're looking at a possible supplemental request in the November town meeting.
Yeah, and honestly, that's a tangential benefit as well, because I'm sure everybody's aware, but if you're not, we're seeing unrealistic and unprecedented cost increases.
Right.
As well.
I think everybody is getting to understand that.
Yeah.
And that's why we think we might be able to do that supplemental budget without too many people throwing things at us.
Yeah, I think it's prudent to get the next estimate round behind us, the value engineering done, and not be pushing the design team for an early package that inevitably may have VE implications past it as well. So I think that's why I was saying, I think this problem actually becomes a win-win-win for everybody. I'm not pushing on the design team to do something that's, strenuous to get an early package out when we're going to be inevitably VEing and trying to solve scope problems as well. So I just feel like it's probably the best case scenario. We're not going to have winter conditions as robust as we would have. And
Right.
that'll save us some money. You know, I mean, obviously we're looking to save money. And maybe things settle down a little bit, you know, with respect to material buys and stuff, and we can get a little more cost certainty if we wait a little longer. So I feel like this is a win for everybody, and I'm certainly interested to hear what the design team thinks, but I feel like this is a no-brainer.
Phil? Phil? Phil, are you still
Yeah,
there?
I'm here, Joe. I'm here. I had to switch to a cell phone.
What are your thoughts?
I agree with everything he's saying. I'm seeing everything the same on my projects. I don't want to delay any work, but we can't sacrifice delays to rush a start just to be delayed. So it needs to go, like you said, it's a whole committee discussion.
Right.
I think just presenting it as you did is fine. Lays out the points. I'm on board.
Okay.
It seems like it makes the most sense.
All right. Chief Scory?
Yeah, Joe, it makes sense to me. I know.
Okay, I thought maybe you'd be, you know, throwing things or something.
I only know because our own experience here right now with any kind of product is it's nearly impossible to get anything.
Right. I just wanted to make sure you weren't having any, you know,
No.
palpitations or anything.
I mean, as much as I would like it done yesterday, I live in the real world. I know how things work.
Yeah, I'm afraid, you know, I saw the mention of this earlier, and you know, I think it only going to make sense. But like I say, I think we have to go to the whole committee because it's not something we can do alone. But Janet, what are your thoughts?
I'm in agreement, Joe. It's been very hard for all my projects to secure materials, metal decking, steel. Just, you know, people are talking about ordering it now and getting it in, you know, second quarter 2022. I mean, it's just been bad. So we're in agreement. And I think Dave's absolutely right about any early release package, which no one in our group is kind of focusing on right now, trying to get the DD package together. But there are, you know, you're doing a bit of guesswork when you're releasing in August, you know, rather than when they're done. So I'm in total agreement that it's a good idea. So.
All right. So Dave, we'll let you know for Wednesday. You can make that quick presentation.
Sure.
To the committee. Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
All right, guys, sorry I got cut off there, but yeah, I've talked to David about this too, and I think it makes a lot of sense. So if we start looking and moving in this direction, might help the project overall. I think that's we've hit all the agenda items. I'm not sure if anybody else has anything they want to discuss or bring up.
I'm sorry, I have two notes I should have brought up earlier. The new front entrance that's going to be straight and not curved. Are all those windows going to be tinted or blacked out? Because it's the records, or are those going to be wide open, like people can't see? I'm just wondering on privacy for the records room.
I thought we said they were going to be tinted.
We'll put some sort of screen or something.
Something. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And
yeah, whether we.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, we can either frit the windows on one of the four surfaces, you know, or we can tint them, or we'll do something, and maybe the upper portions were taller than people might be more clear. We can look at that, Joe. Phil, we'll take care of that.
Yeah, and the last thing, I may have missed it when I switched over my mobile. So the look of the landscaping of what it will look like at the front entrance, because that architectural curved, you know, is going to draw everyone to think that's the entrance still, whether or not you've been there. So any sort of landscaping or something that could be done in front of the windows, it doesn't have to be crazy, just something to make it clear there's nothing there, would just be, maybe it's already being worked on. I'm just throwing that out as a comment.
Yeah, no, that's a good comment. The landscape architects don't know that the curve's gone now, you know, because that was just sort of last Thursday night, you know, so we'll let them know. And once we get the dumpster area, we'll go back because we knew that the landscape people were going to be sitting in the middle of us trying to figure out how to rearrange these tiny little pieces. They're not going to really do anything for D-Day. We're just going to use a placeholder for them, and they'll come in and finish up a drawing for document so that, they're not doing these plans over and over again. It's just not worth it. I did show some pattern of paving, brick paving, and we took that out. But I think last week in the meeting, someone asked if we could like stamp the concrete or something like that to donate. So we'll talk to the landscape architects to see what we can do about minimizing the approach and maximizing the visual to the new entry.
Janet, on that point, on Phil's point, the lettering that goes right above that window.
Yep.
That's Wakefield Publix. I feel like that's a kind of a magnet to that.
Yeah.
Is there any way to do something with that? Like, I don't know what it would look like if it was even moved up higher one, like right under the, where the fitness room is or something like that. I don't know.
Can you just pull that elevation up, Janet?
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen here. Okay, so let's see. Oops. I gotta move you guys out of the way. So I'm gonna blow that up a bit. So you can see that that's the lettering. You can all see this, right? You're talking about this lettering right here. So when we brought this up to the committee before, the committee said, oh no, leave the lettering there and just write like say entry or something there. I have to look at the material when you take those letters off, what's left behind, if those are how they're attached, could create, a thing that, not to mention we couldn't perhaps clean that up. And so you're suggesting moving it up this far?
I don't know. I was just trying to think
no, I mean,
I don't know if that's going to look good. I still feel like that is really drawing people to that section.
I agree. Yeah, you can see it. You can see it on the rendering. It's a little bit far away, but you can see it there. And then there is some letters, we can put on the front here.
I just feel,
but that's the whole area you're talking about. Trying to make the approach bypass that existing and go more towards the entry. So.
Correct. I mean, that police sign is up high, on the face of the building there, the old police sign there.
Yeah, I think I have that in another, let me see. It's right here. So, yeah, let me.
You don't really, I know the committee already looked at it, the building, so I don't want to.
Well, no, it's a good one. It's a good one to rethink. Yeah. So there's the other sign that you were talking about. So. Okay, we'll look at that whole thing. I want to give as I always kid the landscape architects and say they've got 6 blades of grass to work with, but this will be a little bit of a challenge for them to kind of come up with an idea how to minimize the entry, the existing entry, and maximize the new entry. So, okay.
Is there any talk about getting rid of the trees on the sidewalk that go up the side of the building?
I'm sorry, Chris, I didn't hear that.
I said, is there any talk about getting rid of the trees going up the side of the building and the sidewalk?
The trees in front, these? Oh, I'm sorry, I took my screen.
Yeah,
I know. I just realized I stopped sharing. Hold on for a second.
The sidewalk that goes up to the left of the building. If you're
right here, these trees?
Yes.
No, there's no talk about removing them. You have some thoughts to that?
Well, we can't drive. We have a machine that clears the snow on those sidewalks. And we can't drive a machine up any of those sidewalks with the trees on them.
Oh, okay. That is above my pay grade, taking out trees.
Yeah, that would have to go through the committee, Chris.
Yeah.
We can certainly we'll bring it up.
Yeah, we'll bring it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
We are taking trees down at the front, Janet. And maybe we want to look at whether we're putting them back or not.
Right.
Shane and Janet, I had a conversation with Joe Conway maybe a month or 2 ago about having these trees taken out because they're heaving the sidewalk, and we've had
they are. Yeah.
We've had a couple of incidents of people tripping on the sidewalk there.
Yeah, we're going to be. I'm going to look at. I don't have a good plan here that describes what's happening there, but you know, here's the addition coming out to where the curve is. So there are trees along here and they are heaving. You can see that in pictures. If I could find them, it would take too long to look through the million pictures I have. But, you know, the question becomes, they are sort of mature trees. They were planted as part of, I would assume as part of the original design. I could talk to the landscape architects, but I think we're going to actually try to fix that sidewalk because we're going to be obviously tearing out this sidewalk here to do the construction. I don't know, Dave or Dario, what you had thought about how to protect those trees or whether you were getting rid of them anyhow. So
I'm sorry, Gina, which trees?
it's the trees that are right along the sidewalk right now. You know, you're going to be pulling them out. They're gone.
Yeah.
So the question is are they coming back? You know, so you can see right here. Again, these are tree boxes. You know, that's a tree box. That's a tree box. That's a tree box. And they called out for new deciduous and evergreen shrub. Oh no, they called out. No, they didn't call it any. New street trees. So they called out a new street trees there. So the question becomes: do we want street trees or not?
There's a tremendous amount. Well, I shouldn't say tremendous, but there's going to be some significant utility work across that same thing too. So this might be something to consider. You know, does it affect the utility work later on if those trees get mature?
Trees are good though. I will throw that out. They do clear the air. They do help, you know, from a sustainable point of view. But we should talk about it, or you know.
So I think that needs to be part of the discussion with the committee. You know, Chris will bring yourself and Joe in too. I agree. Trees are great, but you know they're great for some people, and that you know they make your job, Chris, harder for maintenance and snow removal and stuff. So you know we'll have that discussion when we get to the final landscaping plan, when we know what we're doing with everything else.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the smaller. Yeah, so that we're talking about these 3 trees plus the one on the other side, which is shown here. So they're fairly mature. They you know, but we'll talk about it. Okay. I'll put a call into my landscape architect and tell him the concern and ask Ray what he thinks about it, and you know if he has any thoughts that he can offer as you make the decision. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing again. Okay, I'm done. I have nothing more.
So next meeting, I think Chief Scorer, you said that you are not available, and some of you guys not available on June 30th.
That's correct. Myself and Deputy Chief Calabrese cannot do that week.
That anytime that week?
We will be at training on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Right. Do we want to try and do? If Friday is the week of the 4th of July holiday, right? Nobody's going to want to meet then.
No.
Let me talk to Janet and Dave and see what we're going to do. The mechanical, electrical stuff. We wanted to take a look at that before we issue the design development drawings. So let me talk to Janet. We'll try and coordinate something, and we'll get back to you with possible dates.
Okay.
Because I think that's an important meeting to have before we issue DD, but we want to make sure everybody's present. So
yeah, we may want to push it off a week or something, and you know, push the drawings off a couple days. That's okay. I don't think it's going to be, you know, but I'll talk to Shane about that. So
okay. Okay, guys, thank you for jumping on today.